We'll get. Okay, I'd like to, hold on one second. I'd like to call the Hopkinton Town Council Budget Workshop of March 15th, 2021 to order. Brian, if you want to just get us started here with the budget
Sure.
discussion, I guess. Yep.
Sure, I'm gonna share the screen so you guys can see the budget. But for those of you who are on the phone, you should have this in front of you anyways. This is just page 2 of the budget, proposed budget. So it's the summary page of expenses and revenue. So I was just gonna walk you guys through this quickly and then go to the tax rate and kind of show you where we stand. So on the expense side, we're seeing an increase from the school of 469,000 roughly, which is an increase of 2.3%. On the municipal budget, we're seeing an increase of 82,000, 82.5. That a big part of that is all contractual. Obviously, we level funded all the departments. A lot of it has to do with healthcare, where there was changes like the town manager's department, for example, where he was a buyback and his secretary is a buyback. And that's no longer the case. Then the capital transfer is up by 105,000. And our total expenses are up 657,000, which is 2.4% increase, which I think is a very reasonable considering the increase from Charahoe of 469,000, 2.3%.
Hey, Brian,
Yeah.
capital transfer.
Yep.
What does that mean? All to,
Oh, that's, so if you look at the line there, that $237,774, that's how much we're spending on the CIP this year.
okay,
So that's how we earmark those funds for the CIP. We have a line item in the operating budget, and that money gets transferred over to the CIP budget.
all right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so moving on, we saw a increase in state aid of 104,000. However, I just saw some numbers from RIDE this morning that's actually reduced by like $10,000 in the latest numbers, but I think we'll be able to offset that with the change in the land trust, and also hopefully we'll see an increase in assessed values once we get the motor vehicles all priced out and the tangibles are all priced out, which Liz is telling me by the end of the week, she'll have all those numbers. So the tax roll will be pretty much solidified at that point, and we'll know exactly what we're looking at. And then, so the municipal budget, again, some of the big things were the loss of the impact fee this year. That was a negative impact, but overall our revenues are going to be up 656,000 to support our increase in expenses, and that's a combination of increases in assessed value and an increase in the tax rate. So if you guys want to switch over to the tax levy page, which is the next page, page 3, I believe.
Page 4.
Page 4. All right, so here we have the previous year tax roll and the current year tax roll. And as I mentioned, the motor vehicles for the current year are still being priced out. And we have some work to do. Liz and Tiana are working on that. They said by the end of the week, we'll be able to they'll be able to go through the motor vehicles and have a pretty good number for us. Hopefully, I was mentioning earlier when we were chatting that we're hoping for some good news on the tax roll. I think we might see an increase that will be able to cut that tax rate increase down, hopefully by like 10 or 12 cents. That's my hope, but I didn't want to put it in there at this point in time because I was a little bit suspicious of what I was seeing. It looked like our decrease there was a minimal decrease in motor vehicle tax revenue, And with the motor vehicle phase out, we would expect to see about a $200,000 loss in motor vehicle revenue, which we make up with a state aid because they reimburse us for that lost revenue. So the governor's new numbers supported the increase in motor vehicle phase out reimbursement, but our motor vehicle tax roll didn't decrease what we expected it to. So the assessor is going to go back and double check those numbers just to make sure that what we're seeing is correct, and that the new exemption level of $5,000 and the new percentage of NADA value of 75%, I believe, in FY22 is worked into her numbers. But again, we're hoping for some really good news on that. But I just want to double checked it before we, I put it out there and everyone thought there was this good news, and then we found out there was an error and we had to take it back. So I just wanted to do our due diligence before we brought that to your, in front of you guys. So with that being said, let me move this. Our tax roll was up by 275,000 without any tax rate increase. So just based on an increase in tangible and real property, was up by tax revenue was up by 155,000, and tangibles were up by 120. The tangible, that's those solar projects that are going online that we've talked about where that revenue was coming in. There's the fees that we discussed in the departments, specifically planning and building and zoning, but this is where we're seeing the increase in the net assessed value, which if we kept our tax rate at 18.28, which was the tax rate last year, we would have seen an increase of 275,000 without any tax rate increase. We know we needed to support a tax rate increase of 654,000, or I'm sorry, 656,000. So when you come in here, this is another thing that I wanted to bring up for those of you who aren't familiar. In Hopkinton, as with most towns, we have a collection rate. So I'll walk you through the FY22 numbers. If you look at the total assessed value, we're looking at 1.1 billion. And then we have our exemptions of about 39.9 million, which brings our net assessed value to basically about 1.1 or 1.081 billion. And then motor vehicle tax rate is 21.18, which is state mandated. And then we control our mill rate for the real property and tangibles. So that's where we make up our revenue whenever we have an increase in expenses. Generally, if we don't see enough value or an increase in the net assessed value, we have to find that revenue somewhere. So that's generally where we have to go is within the mill rate to increase our tax levy, which is that next line, next column, I should say. So that's at 20.3 million. And then we have a collection rate. And historically, I've done analysis on the collection rate, and we're pretty much dead on every year, which was pretty shocking. It pretty much works out to be about 97% collection rate every year. Now we do get the remaining 3%, just not in the current fiscal year. And that revenue is put in under general government. It's under delinquent taxes. There's a line item there. So that's where we get that remaining 3% that isn't collected in the given fiscal year. So that brings us to an estimated collected revenue of 19.7 million. And that is what will be supporting our operating budget, in addition to our department revenue and any other revenue that the town may see, state aid and department revenues. Below that, is a summary of the 4% cap. So in this given year, our maximum increase would have been 749,000. We're at 669 right now. So we're under the cap by about 0.5%. And again, hopefully we'll see some improvement in that now that we've seen the motor vehicle phase out reimbursement, and hopefully that tax roll will increase and give us a little more. We should be able to take that mill rate down if that comes to fruition. And then below it is just a summary of how much of the expenses go to the education versus the municipal budget. So as you can see in the current year, it's about 76%. Municipal budget's about 24%. So our mill rate of $18.66, about $4.46 goes towards the municipal budget, and about $14.20 goes towards education. So that's kind of a summary of the tax rate. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions, but again, I'm hoping for some good news. Actually, let me explain one more thing. So I like to also bring to your attention that the tax rate, generally to get a feel for it, we base it on a $350,000 home. So in the prior year, at $18.28 tax rate to $18.66, there's an increase of 38 cents, which is about $133 on a $350,000 home for the year. So that's about a 2.08% increase, which works out to be about $11 per month. So that just kind of gives you a gauge on what the impact to the taxpayer will be. And again, I'm hoping if we can see a decrease that I'm hoping for, and we can get that down about 11 cents. If the motor vehicle, it'd be about a 26-cent increase, which would be $91 for annual increase in the tax bill for a $350,000 home. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions?
Yes,
Okay.
Steve. This is Sharon. Brian, did you ever used to put that example in here, like based on a $350,000 home? Do that example on this page. Did you ever do that on the right? I can't remember.
No, I've just always done the calculation, and it actually comes, there's a report at the Financial Town Assembly that the council president reads off. And I basically summarize all the points of the budget, like high level stuff that's happening in the operating budget. And that's where it's brought up. So that's read out to the taxpayers at the Financial Town Assembly. It's in that document, but it's never been put in the budget.
Well, I think it would be helpful if that was on here on this page. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, Brian, that example is right here on this page, isn't it?
No.
It is, but when you print it, it's basically
Okay.
the printed area is generally here. And she's probably looking at a hard copy.
Sure.
Yes,
So
I am.
this stuff over here is my calculations I made.
Okay.
So
I would like it for posterity. I would like it on the printed page, if it's possible.
Yeah, we could do that if the council wants to see that.
Ryan, it's Mike, maybe you can just go ahead and send her or email her 2 copies. I think everybody who's online can see it.
Yep.
this way.
Well, I just wanted for the future, next year when we're talking, people are going to say, well, what does this mean to me? And that example of a $350,000 house needs to be in our documentation so we have it. I don't want to think about something that's online. And then we can talk about it.
No, that makes sense. It's a great tool. I mean, Sharon, I'm on board with you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's easy enough to do.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions for me? I'm hoping we got the state aid numbers, which look pretty good. I was very pleased to get those numbers because I felt like there was more risk there than or more downside potential than upside potential, just given the economic climate. And when we got the numbers, everything looked good. I level funded everything in the current budget, and everything came back. The state aid, some of the state aid that is a pass through was higher by a few $1,000s, but everything was pretty much right on. So I was fearful that there would be some reductions, but it looks like things are. We're actually gonna get funded what we thought we were gonna get funded by the state. So any other questions?
I have no questions. I'm good. Thank you, Brian.
All right, and
So Brian, are you going to send us in our hard copy revised page 4 at some point?
yeah, I'll probably send a whole revised budget. I gotta.
When you're done, that's fine.
Yeah, I want to, because at the end of the week, I should have the motor vehicle values. And I'll put those in there before I send this out to you guys so that you have like the latest and greatest. I also have to report we have to put something in the paper, I believe. We have to post it 30 days before the Financial Town Assembly, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think means I have to have it to Lisa by like Wednesday of this week. So once I get that done, I'll probably have to have the final or at least a preliminary proposed budget with the updated motor vehicles at that point in time. And I'll send that version out to you guys.
Okay.
So, and then
Excellent.
we'll still have some time. There's still a couple things that are going to trickle in, like our health insurance rates, because they kind of just give us an estimate. So those things, a couple other things like that will trickle in, and I'll revise them and keep you guys, up to speed, and I'll send out new ones every time something changes. If something changes of any sort of magnitude, I'll send you guys out a new budget. But things will probably stay the same once you get the new version on Wednesday, at least for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
All right.
All right, let's move on a little bit. Yep.
All right. So I think, I don't know if you guys had any more questions. That's the summary. That's the budget in a nutshell for the year. I don't know if there's any other high level stuff. We could take another look at the CIP. You guys are familiar with this document. These are the funding. The 3 projects we're going to fund this year are the computer replacement, the 1904 building, and the police vehicle replacement. And the police vehicle replacement, again, is a combination of the previous year leases and the current year lease. And I can show that. So we still have one more payment on the 2 sedans we bought in FY20. We're second payment of the FY21 SUV, and the first payment of the FY22 SUV gets us to about 53,272, and that's what we're going to fund for the current fiscal year. So just to make that clear, it's not all being funded in one year, but but that's the CIP in a nutshell. I think, I don't know, I think that kind of covers the high level stuff. I mean, other than that, we really would get into the departments, which we've already kind of discussed in detail. But other than that, I mean, that's what I really wanted to, run you guys through the whole budget and in total, and then see if you guys had any other questions for me. Again, we'll have time to alter, change stuff over the next, month and a half if need be. So, but as of now, this is the proposed budget.
All right, I had one question. Where did we have a line item or had we discussed the town website? Was that?
Yeah, it's in the CIP. So,
Okay.
Actually, I can show you guys this, the document doesn't show this, but this is the CIP of project. It's 19.5, and then it has a summary here that I wrote up, which various IT purchases and upgrades, including the implementation and development of a new town website,
I see.
firewall replacement for the police station, 5 new desktop
Okay.
computers, and a new server at Crandall House.
Excellent. All right,
You got
that was it. Yeah, that was the only question I had. It's in the fine print right here, so I just saw it as you were bringing it to my attention.
Yeah, I think that number, I'll check with Chris, because the number that we had initially, I think a lot of things have come up over the last couple weeks about posting certain documents online, whether it's boards and commission minutes or it's ordinances. There's been a lot of recommendations on, and I think it would require some additional upgrades to our service. And I don't think that was in the number, but we'll be able to work it out. Maybe Chris will have to do, 3 desktop computers this year to make up the difference in the cost. But I think we want to get the website right. We want to, if we're going to do it, I think we do it right. We don't want to cut corners, and so we want to have a website out there that's going to work for everybody and fit the town needs. So we'll make
Absolutely.
sure.
All right, sounds good, Brian.
All right. Other than that, I mean, if anybody has any other questions, fire away. If not, that's all I have for you guys.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.
All right. There's no other questions. I'm going to close the workshop, and we'll reconvene as a town council shortly, and I will call the town council meeting to order.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, no problem, guys. Thank you.
You know, 2 more minutes here, and I'll get this meeting started.
Steve, I think there is a hand raised. You want to?
Sure. I'll entertain that seeing as we're. Hi, Barbara. If you want *6 to unmute yourself and just state your name for the record. Hello, Barbara. You had your hand up. Did you want to speak?
Still shows are muted, Steve.
Hold on. Oh, I can't. Yeah. *6 to unmute yourself, right?
Yep.
I'm hitting ask to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Barbara. Just state your name for the record, please.
Thank you. It's Barbara Capalbo. Brian, I'm just asking you this. On your revenue line, you had on the, and it just says revenue and it's the upper caps. You have the budget for 1819 and then 1920, but you have it twice. You don't have a 2021. I think it's just a typo. And I don't have it up, so I can't see it again, but it's on that page you were showing.
On the summary,
On the summary, yes, I think so.
okay, I see FY 18-19 budget, FY 18-19 actual,
Right.
and then FY 19-20 budget, FY 19-20 actuals.
And then the
Yeah.
next one,
Oh, I see what you're saying. It should be FY 2021. It says,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
says
exactly.
it says FY 19,
yeah, I think-
21.
I think that's just a typo, and you did
Yeah.
a great job explaining it. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Barbara. I'll make that change.
All right.
Oh, maybe I can.
Okay, with that being said, being 7:01, I'm going to call the 7 o'clock Hopkinton Town Council meeting of March 15th, 2021 to order with a moment of silent meditation and a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to
To
the
the
flag
To the flag
United
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
stands
one nation, under
under
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice
justice
for all.
Up first, we have a hearing, a public hearing, proposed zoning district use table amendment to prohibit additional gas/diesel stations. Number one, reconvene the hearing on proposed text amendments to the town's zoning ordinance district use table. The intent of the proposed amendments is to prohibit any additional gas/diesel stations, to allow electric charging stations in commercial, manufacturing, neighborhood business zones, including the 2 current gas stations. This proposed amendment has been introduced and sponsored by former councilor Sylvia Thompson, scheduled on November 2nd, 2020 Town Council agenda, where the hearing date was set for February 16th, 2021. The hearing was continued to March 15th, 2021 on February 16th, 2021. Proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, Appendix A, Chapter 135, Section 5, District Use Regulations are shown in bold italics. Section 5, District Use Regulations. And then the use table, I'm not going to read the use table out loud unless that's customary. Lisa, should I read the district table out loud or? Is that-
You can if you want to. It is a little cumbersome. It was posted on the website as well. So
Okay.
I don't know if you would like to.
Sure, I'll read it out. I mean, it's not that.
I'll be happy to
intense.
read it.
Sure,
And
if
I'll
you'd
be
like
happy
to.
to read it if you'd like also.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so, all right. The district use table is comprised of a P for permitted, N for prohibited, S for special use permit, and A for aquifer protection permit. The use categories listed a RFR 81, residential 1, neighborhood business, commercial, manufacturing, aquifer primary, and overlay secondary. 554 is the gasoline service stations, and under those categories, for RFR 80 is N, residential 1, N, neighborhood business, N, commercial P, manufacturing S, aquifer primary N, and overlay secondary is A. The proposed amendments in the bold italics refer to 554 gasoline diesel service stations, and under RFR 80, it's N all across the board under all those categories. Under the electric charging stations, which is a new proposed amendment under 559, it's N under RFR 80, N in residential zone, P in neighborhood business, commercial, manufacturing, aquifer primary, and overlay secondary. And then under section 8, non-conforming development, C, additional addition, enlargement, expansion, replacement, or intensification of a non-conforming development shall be allowed by special use permit unless prohibited in the district use table, and that is highlighted in italics as well, as that's a proposed change. And that being said, that concludes my reading of the district use table.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Is the sponsor present? If the sponsor is present, could you please raise your hand? Okay, I see the hand is raised. Lisa, all fees paid and notices posted?
Notices are posted, fees do not apply in this instance, as it was a former counselor who proposed the change.
Okay, excellent. All right, with that being said, is there any council discussion on this? Do we have anything concerning, any questions for the sponsor?
I just, Counselor Hurst, I just have a counselor question for the legal counsel. Is there any legal concerns with adopting this if the council was so predisposed? Is there any technical glitches you think it would trip up the council or any board in the town?
Well, I had, this is Steve Seipel, the town solicitor. I had two concerns. The first has to do with the advisory opinion that the council received from the planning board, which was, I believe, included in everyone's packets along with the minutes of that planning board meeting. And they looked at the proposed amendment where it seeks to amend section 8 of the zoning ordinance, which would add the words "unless prohibited in the district use table" to the section that has to do with the addition, enlargement, expansion, replacement, or intensification of a non-conforming development, which would normally otherwise be allowed by a special use permit. And I would agree with the planning board's conclusion that this, adding this language "unless prohibited in the district use table," that would apply generally across the board to any non-conforming developments in the town and not just to gas stations. And I think that might go beyond what was intended here, and it could have some unintended consequences for other properties in town. My other concern has to do with the electric charging stations line item in the amendment, and the concern there would be that electric charging stations isn't defined. After I reviewed the planning board's meeting minutes, I saw that was an issue that they struggled with a little bit too. I'm not saying it isn't appropriate to address electric charging stations, but I think that the council might want to have a definition for that before adding it to the zoning ordinance. That would be something I think that might be appropriate for consideration.
My only concern, Councilman Hurst, again, is that right now, cars, most of them operate by either gas or diesel. And I don't know how far into the future when it'll be universally done that cars will be run by electricity. So, and we do have two stations. I know we have one in South Hopkinton or Bradford, and we also have one on Route 3 in Ashwick. I didn't know if Barrett's is still considered a gas station or they selling gas up there, but, or is it only two in Hopkinton right now? That's more or less a question from Councilor Hurst.
Sure. I mean, Councilor Hurst, this is Councilor Moffett here. I know of obviously Spicer's Gasoline in Ashaway, and I know the old Valero has closed and has been closed for quite a few years now. So I'm trying to rack my brain as far as thinking of any other gas station in town.
Barrett's used to sell gas. I don't know if they're selling gas.
No. There's no gasoline sold at Barrett's.
Okay, Must have been in just recent times because I remember they used to sell it. But I think it's going to be time in the future before, and I don't know when people will have this thing about universal electric cars.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's going to be a time, I mean, I know they exist, but how widespread will they be or universally done? That's the question.
Well, Councilor Moffett here. Well, I mean, my concern is along the lines of what Mr. Seipel has explained is that there is no definition. I mean, we don't know what one of these charging stations, obviously, other than the ones that are XL1 look like. I mean, if we add them into a commercial, situation, manufacturing, I mean, we are obviously 95 runs through here. I mean, if you've got to get to Maine, New Hampshire, Eastern Massachusetts, I mean, you're pretty much, coming through Hopkinton here. So, I mean, as we move forward in the future, I mean, with more electric cars on the road, I could see a, potential need for that here as a place for people to come use this. So, I mean, I am definitely concerned, with the lack of a strong definition and kind of an example as to, what is kind of envisioned here with this. So, that may be a question for the proposer. Does anyone have anything to add to that before I?
Yeah, Councilor,
Sure.
Councilor Moffett, Councilor Gary. I didn't see anything. It doesn't define anything as, hopefully it doesn't define anything as, say, mobile gas station, say work site, farms, anything like that in the write-up.
Well, in this right here, Councilor Gary, this is Councilor Moffett. This use table here is for
Yeah, like a regular gas station. I get that. Yeah.
sure. Well, no, I mean for the most part, I mean what I'm getting at is this is I'm having a little forgetful moment here, but I think it's what's the word I'm looking at? Thinking of like these are businesses, obviously. These aren't, just regular. So obviously, someone's not going to have a business in a, in an RFR 80 selling electricity to charge cars and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. So let me just let me ask the sponsor here real quick. Sylvia, are you there, Sylvia?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. I agree with the comments of the solicitor and the materials in the planning board. I was a little confused with their advisory, and then when I read their minutes, it was clear that there was confusion and they did the best they could. For instance, unless prohibited in the district use table, that, well, I tell you what, I'm going to start at the beginning. The reason I even proposed wanting to have no more gas stations in town was primarily because of the Love's truck stop. Obviously, we don't want any mistakes and we don't want gas in our groundwater. And we do have 2 gas stations that provide our needs and apparently fulfill our needs. But it was after 10 years of trying to, the town fighting against Love's all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't know I don't know what the total bill was for legal, but it had to have been approaching 100,000. But it did take around 10 years for us to finally say to Love's, go to another town. So that's why I put ends in for gas stations. Now, you're absolutely right. There are only 2 left. I sent this to Sherry in zoning, our zoning official. And I asked her, what term do I use, for instance, with electric charging stations? Because I didn't know. And she said the term is electric charging stations. However, it's not defined. And when I looked at putting in commercial, originally I was thinking commercial and manufacturing, we could have charging stations and you'd want to permit them. But I put ends in the RFR 80 and RFR 1 because I was thinking commercial. I was thinking, you know, electric charging stations, and I'm thinking you sell it, you see them at rest stops, you see them at gas stations, and you're selling the ability for someone to come in and use electricity, and they have to pay for it. So that's why I put ends in. But I didn't mean to say that no one, for instance, if we don't have an electric car, we have a hybrid, but if we had an electric car, I would think I wouldn't, quote, need a charging station. I just need an outlet with the proper current and amperage, and that would work for residential use. So it may be that if you're not comfortable moving forward with this, you could delay, continue the hearing. You could have a workshop with the planning board, or you can turn to staff. And with any questions that come up tonight that you for instance, what's the definition of electric charging station? Or is there any other definition that isn't in here that you think should be? Turn to staff and ask them to come up with the answers you need. Or like I said, you could postpone this. You whether or not you need a workshop with the planning board, you know, you know, I don't know where you guys are at, but that's why I did the gas stations. However, that section where it says unless prohibited in the district use table, my thinking at the time was that my thinking was we have 2 gas stations. We don't want them to be able to use the land that's next to them to expand, or we don't want them to add more pumps. And that's where I was coming from. However, that language, which the planning board picked up on, thank goodness they did, that would not allow for replacement of pumps or gasoline tanks in the ground. And I certainly didn't mean that to happen. So get rid of that red language. I agree, it disappears. But if you're comfortable with leaving in with gasoline stations, if you're comfortable leaving S's in for commercial and manufacturing, that will allow the ability for a Love's type activity to come back to town. And even if they have to get an aquifer protection permit in the overlay secondary, that's what Love had to do, and it was a 3-2 vote. We almost ended up with Love. So think about whether you really want more gas stations or you really want them to be able to expand. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Steve, can't hear you, you're muted.
Okay, with that explanation, is there any more council discussion?
Yeah, Counselor Moffett, Counselor Gary, I would like to say thank you for Sylvia for putting this forward. My question is, maybe this might be a better question for the counselor. It's kind of sounds like, I know where Sylvia is coming from for this, but let's say somebody buys the old Valero right there, and they want to start then, however it's zoned, and they want to start doing gas again. If we vote on this and pass it, is that saying that nobody will be able to come in and do another gas station? Because if it is, that's not business friendly.
Hold on one second. Sylvia still has her hand up here. I think she may have an answer for that. Sylvia, do you want to answer that?
Can you hear me again? Yeah.
Yes.
I guess you didn't get a copy of the email. Maybe in your packet, you may have received a copy of an email from Sherry. I asked her about the Valeros and whether or not they could come back because they were once upon a time legal non-conforming. And she explained that and it's in our zoning ordinance, which the solicitor could speak to. that it's been more than a year. It's been quite a few years. And if you discontinue a legal non-conforming use, I believe I think it's longer than just the 1 year. It's no longer viable. So Valero's cannot come back as a gas station. They are neighborhood business, so they could start up as a neighborhood business, but not a gas station. Is that helpful?
It is, thank you.
Sylvia.
So with that being said, and that was another concern I had was the section 8, the non-conforming development. So I will move to strike that language from this proposal. I'm not sure if that's something. Do we just kind of come to an agreement upon that? Do we need to make a motion to remove it, or is that?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would advise that you could just, at the point when you do come to a vote on the ordinance, you could just vote on it as amended and include whichever amendments were made. I don't know if you need to vote on each amendment separately.
All right, thank you. All right, is there any more discussion? Do we want to discuss the use table?
Yes, Steve, this is Sharon.
Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Okay, and I'm looking at what the planning department voted on, and they voted to, on the line gasoline diesel service stations, 554. They voted for across the board N for RFR 80, N for residential 1, N for neighborhood business, but they put an S under commercial and an S under manufacturing, N for primary, and an A for secondary.
Yes.
That's what they voted for.
That's their recommendation.
And I'm questioning, I thought Sylvia said that if you go with S in commercial and S in manufacturing, that you're opening it up for new people to come in and like love. I just wanted to double check that that's what Sylvia thinks.
Well, I mean, we could ask our own town solicitor as well, potentially. Mr. Seipold, do you agree with that? That if we leave a S for special use permit in the commercial and manufacturing areas on a district use table, that it will open up for more gas stations?
Well, they
The opportunity for,
I'm sorry, what?
or the opportunity to have a gas station in those areas.
Well, right, that would mean they'd be allowed by special use permit, so they'd have to go through the zoning board, but yes, that would be allowed, but only on the condition of getting a special use permit.
Sharon, does that answer your question?
Yes, it sounds like that's where the planning department, that's what the planning board recommended. And I think that's the opposite of what Sylvia was really proposing. So I think we need to discuss.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Steve Seipold, Town Solicitor again. I might just add to that a special use permit is generally not a really high burden to clear.
Okay.
It's more of a review of the project. It's generally I'm not speaking to any particular project, but special use permits more often than not, I would say, are granted. They're just not that, the showing that the applicant needs to make is not that difficult.
Right, and I don't think that's, I don't think we want to do that, but I think that during their discussion, they were wondering if you made it all ends as being originally proposed, that you would never be able to, that all the gas stations were closed down, and you wouldn't be able to get gas, and it's a long time before we're going to actually go all electric. electric, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that the discussion is, whether we understand what Sylvia wanted versus what the planning board recommended.
And also what the council wants. I mean, that's kind of,
Right.
I mean, it's before us now, so I mean, it's up to us to kind of make that decision. So,
Would
would you like to start the discussion?
Can I ask one more question? So if we did this in all the way across, it's saying you can't have any more, and we have to assume that, from what I understand, this Spicer is the only one. Is there another one?
There's also, Sharon, there's also one on the corner of 216 and Route 91 in the, over by Pete's
Oh,
Grocery.
the other end.
Yes.
So you got two
Okay.
altogether.
Yeah. So how,
I mean,
so that's saying that you can't add any more. That's the bottom line?
yes,
Okay.
Counselor Moffett, Counselor Gary.
sure.
Just when you say stuff like that, when we're not going to allow any more, that starts the trend of business unfriendly. We need to have business in town, but also too, I concur with Sylvia. We don't want to Lowe's. That's pretty much where I'm at with this.
Yeah,
Not-
I mean, so that's kind of like a double-edged sword there, Council Gary.
Oh, I agree 100%. But when we make things like this, Steve, when we say, okay, boom, done, no more after this, that kind of closes the door on situations like that.
I mean, we're talking about gas stations too, so I mean, we're not talking about retail stores. I mean, like you would mention the Valero. I mean, the Valero, is it a neighborhood business? It could open back up as a convenience store.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, just that it could open up. I mean, if Sylvia is saying that their permits had expired or their time had expired, it is what it is. Okay, now you can open up as something else. But I just don't want to end it where, okay, boom, no more gas stations in Hopkinton. That sends a bad vibe. Not that I would know where anyone all of a sudden someone would start building one, but I don't want to close the door on saying, okay, Hopkinton is just going to have 2 gas stations. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I see it also. I mean, and this is just a point of view. I mean, obviously, exit 93 in North Stonington. I mean, there's 3 gas stations.
Yeah.
I mean, right on the town line. There's one in Ashway on Route 3, one on 216, and then when you get to Richmond, which is exit 3, there's another 3 or 4 gas stations over there. I mean, so I mean, we're.
Counselor, hear what I'm saying.
No, I understand what you're saying, Mike.
Okay.
I understand it.
Okay.
I mean, maybe somebody else has, something to add to that, to maybe comment upon your comment. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's saying we don't want any more gas stations is completely business unfriendly. I just think it's saying that we don't want any gas stations. I mean, that's kind of it. And it's more of a, aquifer protection kind of, setup. I understand where Sylvia is coming from this. So, for me, there's a big thought process going on, I mean, I'm not 100% on board with it at this moment. So that's why I would potentially hear from some other counselors about it.
Would you, Counselor Moffett, Counselor, is this something that maybe we'd like to table and come back to at a later date, or would you like to continue on with it now?
I mean, I think it's worthy of a discussion, seeing as that, we can only really have these discussions in a public forum. So, I mean, it would be kind of nice to know where other counselors kind of, maybe leaning towards or against, or, just to, because again, I mean, it's not like we can have a conversation outside of, the situation where we're actually in right now. So, It would just be nice. I mean, I would entertain a motion to continue if we can get a little more discussion. I mean, that would be kind of nice.
I'll make a motion, we continue, Counselor Hurst, and try to get some input from Jim Lampier and the planning board where they want to go and on this. So I will make that a motion that we continue this, but to a later date.
Mr. President, I second Counselor Hurst's motion.
All right, all in favor?
Counselor Hurst, aye.
Counselor Gary, aye.
Counselor Moffett, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Counselor Davis, aye.
All right, motion passes. We will continue this public hearing to a later date. Lisa, do you have any dates open or dates in mind?
I do not have any suggested dates. You may want to push it out a little bit if you need the input of Mr. Lampier and the planning board or any other department. You may want to.
The planning board already gave you an opinion. So I don't know what else you need from them.
You're looking for a definition? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, we can reach out to Jim and all the departments that would be able to give us feedback and answer some questions that we have. So,
And
can we move this 6 weeks out? Does that work? I mean, a month and a half. gives
I
us
mean,
time.
Counselor Hurst, I don't see even a problem if you do it in June. We got things on the plate. This isn't a do and die type of thing. We could have a few months. And if we choose to, we could see what other cities and towns are doing, which I don't know what they're doing. But the fact of the matter is that when you make laws and there are consequences, and I have no problem because I see electric cars are going to be in our future, but we don't know where it's going to go. So I think it's not going to hurt to wait till June. It's not that earth shattering right now. Thank you.
This is Lisa. Would you like me to provide you with the dates in May and June?
Yes, please.
All right. So you have Monday, May 3rd, Monday, May 17th. Then in June, you have June 7th and June 21st.
June 7th, I think put it on the calendar for June 7th.
At 7 p.m.?
Yes, Lisa.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Do we need a motion to continue? Or we already did that, so.
You're all set.
Okay, excellent. All right, so up next, I have the consent agenda. Approved town council meeting minutes of March 1st, 2021. Budget workshop notes of February 25th, 2021. Budget workshop notes of February 22nd, 2021. Budget workshop minutes of February 11th, 2021. Accept the following monthly financial/activity report from the town clerk. Approve abatement due to duplicate billing on 2020 motor vehicle tax submitted by the tax assessor. Set April 5th, 2021 as a hearing date for a Class BV liquor license, a Class A viculating license.
Victualling.
Okay, however, a holiday sales license and a multi-event permit filed by Little Rhodey Lobster LLC for property located at 15A Frontier Road. Approve refund due to an overpayment of escrow company and an overpayment of title company on 2020 real estate tax requested by the tax collector.
Mr. President, Council Gary, make a motion, we approve.
Okay,
Councilor Moffett, I have two corrections to the minutes of March 1st. do I make a motion to remove those from the
A consent
from-
agenda?
yeah. Lisa, how do
Well,
we
if-
handle that?
This is Lisa.
Sorry.
If Mike would like to withdraw his motion and you would like to remove them first to go through the corrections, you could do that, or there could be a second to the motion, and then you could discuss the March 1 meeting minutes, and then part of the discussion would be to correct them where you see a problem, and then you could go forward and consider your approval with the minutes as amended.
Mike, would you like to remove your motion?
Yes, I'd like to, Mr. President, Council Gary, I'd like to rescind my motion.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Marvel, I'd like to remove the March 1st meeting minutes so that we can correct them. But do I need to make that as a motion?
No, you could just go ahead and identify the errors
Oh, okay.
and on the page. Yeah.
Okay, yes. So on page 6, the very first line, where it says, Council President Moffett advised that the wish to start with the contaminated site solar, and I think the is supposed to be he.
I agree.
Okay, and the second one is on page,
Council Marvel, what page you on in the minutes?
that was page 6, first line. In the middle of the line, the word the should be he. And on page 12, the 20th line down, the second word is wished. And I believe after reviewing the video, it should be something like liked. Do you need me to read that line?
Yeah, if you would.
Where it said, starting on line 20, it currently says he wished the first sentence on page 10 of the current PSES, and then there's a period, so that's the end of the
Yeah.
sentence. I believe what it should say is he liked the first sentence on page 10 of the current PSES.
I agree with that.
Okay, those are my two
Everybody else
changes.
does?
I have no further changes.
Counselor Geary, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. President, Council Gary, I would like to make a motion, we approve the consent agenda
As amended.
as amended.
I second, it's Bob Marvel.
All in favor?
Aye.
Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Davis, aye.
Steve Moffett, aye. Motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. Next up, the president's report. An announcement.
Steve, can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Lisa, I know we got this thing coming up on April 5th, and the applicant knows they need to be here, what time and all that, right? Because it seems like last couple of times we've missed, the applicants have missed or not shown up or called.
This is Lisa. This is a little different than the renewal for established liquor licenses. This is an application for a brand new license because the license that was at that establishment has lapsed. So they're asking for a brand new license. I've been in touch with Mr. Restivo and his attorney, who's I cannot recall his name, Christian Infilatino or something like that. And I'm sure that I have really messed up his name or his pronunciation. So in fact, I spoke with him today, and what I indicated to him was that once the date is established, which you have established that as the 5th, I'm going to generate a letter to them, and yes, their attendance will be required. There will be a whole list of information that they will have to provide. Background checks will have to be done for both applicants. One has been done already. There will be reach out to the tax collector, tax assessor, chief of police, building and zoning, with a memo to each. The Department of Business Regulation will also get a letter. And it's a little involved. There'll be an ad in the paper, notice to the abutters, which there are not that many in that proximity. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, will be required to be in attendance. And I will provide them with the agenda when it's all set.
Lisa,
Yes.
what about the well? The well is located on the Revity.
That is something that will have to establish, I guess. That is an issue that will have to be dealt with when it comes up. I don't know if they have any familiarity with that, but they have to provide Department of Health licenses, including water quality on the well. So
I think they should be made aware of it, just in case they weren't.
perhaps it's something I will include in the letter.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Council Marvel, you had your hand up.
Oh,
You have your
sorry.
hand
No,
up?
that was from before. Sorry.
All right. Just checking, didn't want to bypass you.
Lisa, as always, we thank you for your due diligence and always making sure that we're on track. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Up next, Council President Report. Announcements concerning upcoming meeting of the Wesley Town Council, Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, and Southern Rhode Island Conservation District on March 18th, 2021 at 6 p.m. concerning the Pawcatuck River at Potter Hill. Addressing the current conditions and ideas for ecological restoration meeting. So with this announcement, I wanted to read a letter from Representative Brian Patrick Kennedy with some information that I would like to share regarding this meeting. This information will also, and I believe, Lisa, you can correct me, it's been posted to the town website?
It has been, yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to read this letter. It says, I wanted to notify the members of the town council and residents of the town of Hopkinton that live along the Pawcatuck River in Ashway near the Potter Hill Dam about an upcoming meeting of the Wesley Town Council, the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, and the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District. Southern Rhode Island Conservation District is assisting the town of Wesley and its partners with the Pawcatuck River at Potter Hill. Current conditions and ideas for ecological restoration meeting on March 18th at 6 p.m. at the Wesley Town Hall. The town of Wesley and its partners received a grant from NOAA to study the feasibility of improving fish passage and flood resiliency at the Potter Hill Mill. The engineers obtained by the town of Wesley have completed their preliminary study of the river and will provide that information on March 18th via a virtual meeting. Due to COVID restrictions on gathering size, the public is invited to participate via Zoom or by telephone. The meeting will also be broadcast live on PEG RI TV channel 18 on Cox or channel 29 on Verizon, and will be on Facebook Live and recorded and rebroadcast later. Interested parties can watch online or television and call the phone numbers below to ask questions. You can get the information on how to click the Zoom meeting on the town website. I believe it's located on the bottom right-hand side of the town website on the homepage. It says also residents of Wesley and the town of Hopkinton can submit a question in advance by going to the Wesley webpage. So if you go to the Wesley webpage, which is wesleyri.gov, there should be a section for the Pawcatuck River at Potter Hill. At the top of the page, click on submit a question or comment regarding the issue, or go directly to this page and submit the questions or comments that you have for the meeting. So I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, all the residents of Hopkinton regarding this matter. Hopefully, if you have questions or concerns, you will sign on for the Zoom meeting, or you will submit questions through the Town of Wesley website. That's all I have. Thank you. Up next. Next, we have the town manager's report.
Yes, good evening, council. I just want to bring to your attention that we filled a vacancy in the Public Works Department. The applicant's name is Derek Gardner. He's a 29-year-old. He's currently resides in Westerly, but he's from Richmond, Rhode Island. He started on March 8th, and he comes with a good deal of experience. He's got plowing experience, CDL license, and he seems to be a strong, according to Director Dave Caswell, he's already been quite an asset to the town and a strong contribution to the Public Works Department. So I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian.
Excellent.
Up next, new business. Request of the Recreation Director and the Parks and Recreation Commission to enter into a partnership with the Wood-Pawcatuck Watershed National Wild and Scenic River System Stewardship Council regarding Briggs Memorial Park. I believe we have Mary Sawyer and Elaine Calderon I see on here. If you would both like to speak, please raise your hand. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Okay, Mary, start 6 and you want to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Council. Yeah, so the Recreation Commission voted to enter into a partnership with the local Stewardship Council of the Wood-Pawcatuck Scenic and River System at their last commission meeting. We have walked through Briggs Park together several times. I'm very familiar with it, as I think Elaine is as well. And we are looking for permission to enter into a partnership with them to upgrade the park. It's I don't know if you're familiar with this park. It's off of High Street, Route 216 heading into Connecticut. Right before the Thames River little industrial area there. Very nice wooded 4.5 acre parcel. Basically, I think it's used as a neighborhood park. People hike and walk through there, walk their dogs. But we really don't run events there or have had much activity. So Elaine approached me back in, I think it was October, as the Ashaway River is protected by the National Wild and Scenic River System. And they would like to see that the public is aware of the Ashaway River, that it's protected, and we'd like to make it more accessible and known to people in Hopkinton and beyond. So they have generously set aside $9,000 of its current year budget for the park to be surveyed and for us to develop a concept plan. Basically, I think the greatest improvement that we feel that we need to make, and this I'm speaking on behalf of the commission as well, is to upgrade the parking. If you pull in, it's a U-turn type road. You enter into one side and there's a U that goes through the park and then comes out onto 216 on the other side. We'd like to block that off so cars cannot go through, and upgrade the parking area so that cars can, 3 or 4 cars can pull in and safely turn around and then pull back out onto Route 216. So that aspect of the improvements is probably going to be the most laborsome and expensive. So we do need to get it surveyed for that. And other improvements are to clean up the trails, maybe grade that pathway a little bit better, put some picnic tables and benches, and then perhaps what we want to call a safety fencing by the bank of the river, because it's pitched up quite high. It's above the main part of the park is quite high above the river. So we'd like to put perhaps like a wooden guardrail type fencing up so that it's just makes it a bit safer. So we are proposing that the town council approve this partnership. And we can get going on the Wild and Scenic River group to hire a engineering company to start the survey. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out, Elaine, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Sure, I see Elaine's hand up here. I will allow her to speak.
Okay.
Elaine, if you could hit *6 and unmute yourself.
I think Mary covered, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I think Mary covered it pretty well. I would just add that one of our goals of the Stewardship Council is to support public access to the watershed rivers. And the Briggs Park is the only place in anywhere where townsfolk can actually get to the Ashway River. So it's a beautiful park. It's just not well known, and without any place to park and without some place to have picnic tables or some place to sit down, it still won't be used. Plus it could use a sign too that shows where the entrance is. Most people don't even know it's there, and they drive by that road dozens and dozens of times. I would say right now we're just looking for not a formal agreement, but let us have the go-ahead to get the concept plan written up. And once we see what the total cost will be, then we'll probably come back and look for a more formal agreement between the town and the Stewardship Council. We have funds to purchase the capital items, but we would be looking for the town to be partners by providing in-kind services, such as Mary's time, possibly DPW time to smooth out the road or clear the area for parking. But we can work that out once we get an idea of what our initial ideas would cost. I guess that's it.
Councilman Hurst, I grew up next to the park. I remember when it was built, lived in a large white house that was next to the park, and my parents set up housekeeping there in 1950, and I came along in 53, and I lived next to that property till 1976. And how it came about is Asa Lloyd Briggs was, he was state representative from Hopkinton, second cousin to my maternal grandfather. But, there's a lot of, you can say where the glaciers worked on that property, because there's, big potholes or sinkholes in the, but the bad thing that I'm concerned about with that park is what, through the years, they had swings in there, they had outhouses, and they had grills and things like that, and tables, and they were vandalized. So I hope when if this is done, that somehow we have a police presence there, so that it's not vandalized, because that was a problem years ago. And also, I want to say one thing, as I understand it, and you got to realize Asa Lloyd Briggs died in 1962, if I remember correctly. And the thing is that I understand when that was given to the town, the town was required to maintain that. So I think that you might want to have the lawyer for the town to look over the background on that being given to the town on behalf of the Briggs family or his estate. I don't know all the details. I was really young when he died, but I would have the solicitor for the town look that over and give any comment. Thank you.
I would like to start off by saying thank you for entertaining this this idea. I like Scott would say that I'm definitely interested in seeing something come from this, and that this parcel become a piece of property that the people of Ashway and in Hopkinton can come to enjoy. With that being said, I mean, I don't really see. I mean, I understand what Scott said, but I don't think we could not. I mean, and maybe I'm kind of missing what Scott was saying, but I don't think we necessarily need to wait back from the solicitor to kind of make a decision on the direction we think we should go with this.
My concern is, in response to the council president, is I just want the intent of that property being given to the town is maintained or addressed. I think a lot of times people do give property to the town from time to time with certain expectations, and I just think that it should be reviewed that they're being observed. That's all. Thank you.
Can I, hello?
Yes, please.
Hi,
Yes,
it's Mary. Yes, I agree with Scott. And I have to say, the town does go through, there really isn't anything there right now. There are no swings or anything like that. So we're hoping to keep it minimal maintenance. And many trailheads, perhaps we can post signs too. If you bring something in, please take it out as far as garbage. But we haven't seen, it's been blocked off for a few years. So with that, not being accessible to cars going through and dumping garbage and vandalizing, we haven't seen as much as we have in the past. So hopefully that will be the case also going into the future with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Is there any other discussion? Any other comments from any other counselors?
Councilor Moffett, Councilor Gary, I'm good with it. It's very self-explaining. Both Mary and Mrs. Calderon explained it very well.
So, kind of based on Scott's comments, I mean, are you looking for us to continue this conversation, Scott? Or are you what's the?
No, I think Elaine is my next door neighbor, and she's very an industrious person, and Mary's a great recreation director. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying is that we should, generally speaking, I think we should look at town property we already own. Also, when somebody, when the town gets property, as I understand the Briggs property, and you got to remember, I was really young. I believe that the town had the obligation to maintain that. And the big question is, under the spirit of the way it was given to the town, is, are we maintaining the property like it should be? That's only the question. And it would be good because it probably hasn't been looked at in decades. But like I said, Asa Lloyd Briggs died in 1962, as I remember. In fact, I'm positive he did. And he's long gone, but I just think that somebody should look at the how it was transferred to the town and whether or not we're fulfilling the conditions that was given to the town. That's all. Nothing complicated. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to entertain, obviously, to see what all the council members think. I think, I mean, and I would be assuming that Asa Briggs would probably be happy to see what's happening to this and the efforts that the wild and excuse me for the Woodpawpatuck Watershed Wild and National Scenic River System Stewardship Council is willing to do. I think, to bring awareness to this park would probably be an honor to Asa Briggs. It's definitely going to definitely bring awareness to it. I mean, someone may see a sign that says Asa Briggs and may actually, you know, I wonder who he was and realize that he was an early person from Hopkinton. So, you know, so how do we stand on this? I mean, how do we want to move forward? Do we want to agree with the agreement that that we have here in front of us?
Councilman Hurst, obviously, I know the area because I grew up there. I haven't walked around there in a long time, very long time, but I'm in favor of it. And I think it's long overdue to do something positive with that property, and hopefully it'll be appreciated and be respected when people visit there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So do we need to just have a general consensus on an agreement here, or does a motion need to be made here to come into an agreement?
Mr. President, Councilman Hurst, I'd like to make a motion that the town council signals its interest in having a relationship with the Wood-Pawcatuck Watershed National Wild and Scenic River System Stewardship Council in regards to Briggs Memorial Park with the town of Hopkinton and its agencies.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
Mr. President, Council Gary, I second Councilman Hurst's motion.
All in favor?
First, aye.
Gary,
Moff-
aye.
Moffat, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Davis, aye.
Excellent. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you very much, Elaine. I much appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you
Barry.
very much.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Okay. Up next, Charahoe related matters requested by Town Councilor Hurst. Discussion regarding the Charahoe budget vote / replacement of 4 elementary schools with 1 regional elementary school.
Yes, you know, I'm probably the toughest person, not the toughest, but one of the toughest persons through the years in regard to Charahoe. And I'm a little disappointed on the school budget vote, which I will say publicly, I will vote against it. I believe in an outside management study. In the town of Hopkinton, it consumes, depending upon what percentage you want to do, around 75%. So not only does the Charahoe budget impact the taxpayers of our town, it actually impacts the operation of town government. And a lot of times the town council, to make the tax rate bearable, and also we don't, unlike a single member school district like they have in Westerly, the town council actually gets to pass on the bottom line of the school budget. But since we're in a regional school district, we don't have that. But at the same time, the state of Rhode Island expects all the cities and towns to live within a budget cap. And the Charahoe vote impacts budget caps differently. Also, I got some, I'm also concerned, I could probably move this into the replacement of 4 elementary schools with 1 regional elementary school. The Charahoe Act was established for a reason, and it was given with veto power because there's 3 separate towns. State aid is apportioned per the towns, and the towns have veto power on major things. And there'd be a need to change the Charahoe Act. And I'm not really sold, because I think not only long bus rides, but also within the future, maybe 20, 30 years into the future, this area is probably going to grow more because people in Providence are going to, there's very few places they can build houses other than Washington County and Western Rhode Island. It's just a matter of time. But what concerns me is the fact that if you do something, especially when you're going to change something like the Charahoe Act, you got to work with the town councils. And usually when the legislature does something, they usually check and make sure every town council passes on it and agrees to it. And that's done for a reason. And the problem with the school committee is they need to have a more collaborative approach to the individual towns. And I think the single elementary school is going to be a very tough sell, whatever its merits are. But also, what I like to have, and I like to, I got so many cheat notes here. I would like to have the building inspector for the town of Hopkinton to examine the Ashway Elementary School, the new one, and also the Whole Valley Elementary School. The Charter Act requires the Charter School District to maintain our school buildings. And I'd like to know how from his perspective, because he's an employee of the town, is whether or not the Charter School Committee is adequately taking care of the so-called new Ashway Elementary School, which is under the jurisdiction of the Charter School Committee, and the Whole Valley Elementary School, and whether they're, and how they are maintained. And I'd like to have his opinion on that. I think that's a reasonable question because it's town property, which is that we rent to the Charter School District, and they are required by the Charter Act to maintain our school buildings. And I think that's worth information worth having, and I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for it. The school committee also, I think I might have said this before, they've taken around 75% of our tax dollars, but they have the flexibility of changing light items. So people that go and vote on the school budget don't seem to fully appreciate the fact the school committee, after that fact, routinely changes line items all around. They have the flexibility the town council doesn't have. And it's very important to look at. So, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Any other council members?
Council
Steve?
Moffett.
Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, I would like to know if the Charahoe School Committee can actually spend $250,000 in their capital budget lines in this new budget, FY 21-22, without the towns having taken a vote that we want to move on that consolidation. And so I would like to know from a legal point of view what options Hopkinton has of preventing that if they don't want to have that, or at least having some kind of town vote on that. I don't think that we should be spending any money if people don't want it. And we need to find out whether or not they do or don't. I personally do not want to see the schools consolidated. I was very proud to attend the ceremony at Ashaway. I think it was the Ashaway School when it was voted a blue ribbon school. And yes, it was Ashaway. And I just think, and Hope Valley has been a blue ribbon school too. So the children are learning very well in the small environment that they have at the two local schools, and I think that should continue. But I want to know what our legal rights are, what we can do, what we should do, why we should be able to get input from the residents. And I don't know if all of that comes down to just voting yes or no on the budget. Is that our only choice? That's my question.
Is that a question for the solicitor, Sharon? Is that what
Yes,
you're?
yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Councilwoman, this is Steve Seipel from the solicitor's office. Per Voggy and I, Per would be the other attorney here in my office. we had looked into the Charahoe Act and done some research on this back a week or two ago. There are a lot of, I guess, moving parts here, and there is the attorney for the school district, I believe, has said that, you know, to do this consolidation of the schools would require a referendum vote.
Okay.
You know, Councilman,
So are you saying that the school
I'm
district's
not
going to
sure what else
do
the
a referendum vote?
town is, the town council can do. The school district is a separate unit of government that has its own. I'm sorry.
Councilman Hurst, I just want to point out that Charahoe School District was formed by the three towns, but historically what has happened is, like, when they put something on a referendum, usually that referendum is usually approved by the General Assembly, and I'll stand corrected. And the General Assembly will check to make sure every town council is endorsed the vote. And that hasn't taken place now. And I understand maybe Mr. Anderson will disagree with that interpretation, but as I remember, that's the way we handle it. And there's a number of people have been involved in Charahoe through the years, and as I recollect, that's what we do.
Councilman Hurst. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Seipel.
I was just going to say, I'm having a little bit of computer trouble here on my end, and I'm not sure if I'm hearing everything very well. But I'd be, if there's any council member who wants to discuss the issues related to the school district, I'd be happy to look into those issues and concerns and report back to the council on that.
But the point, shouldn't we be either having a letter? Shouldn't we know what legally what our options are before it becomes a fait accompli? Or if we disagree with it, they're spending that $250,000 up front. If we disagree with that, then our only choice is to vote against the Charahoe budget. Is that? I just want to know what our options are and what the residents' options are.
Right. That's, I mean, the school district and the school committee are separate from the individual towns, and so they, you know,
They are separate from the towns, but legally, the towns are accountable for the budget cap.
in the budget proceedings, but options there are to address that.
All right, looks like we're having some technical difficulty here. We're kind of getting some of our messages mixed up here because of it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing.
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit here, Steve, and I'm not sure why. But Sharon, I mean, I would suggest and maybe this is what attorney or solicitor Seipel is saying, is that maybe you know, kind of pose your question and then maybe get an answer after. Is that what you're saying? Kind of, you know, do a little research on it.
I guess my I don't know how many more times that we're going to meet before the people vote in April. Isn't it April? That's the vote for the Charahoe budget?
It is.
April 9th. So how many more times are we going to have to inform the residents of what options they have? That's where I am. And so I'd like to know legally what can be done, what can't be done, if the residents don't want this the budget to include the Charahoe budget to include that money to be spent.
This is Counselor Moffett. I'm going to speak to this a little bit, Sharon. I mean, what I'm understanding from Mr. Seipel is that, the town council is separate. I mean, I'm sorry, the school committee is separate from the town council. And I understand what Scott is saying, but what the people are saying, I mean, the people make a decision when they vote on the budget. That's kind of where they can say, I guess, everything they want to say, but until there's a vote on it, I mean, it's kind of, that's what it comes down to. I mean, if the council has a decision that they want to potentially, as a group, make a statement saying that we want to see this and we request it, I guess that's what we do. But that's why we have a referendum to vote on things. I mean, it's.
The question that I have is I still am trying to figure out how the Charahoe School Committee can try to move on consolidating the schools without changing the Charahoe Act. And the Charahoe Act is something that gets to be voted on by the General Assembly. It's at the state level, and I think what Scott was trying to say is that when the General Assembly votes at the state level, they need to know that the towns are in favor of this. I mean, I just think that the process is not going the way it should, and I'm questioning whether the process is going the way it should, and if in fact they should have to open up the Charahoe Act. They should have to go to the General Assembly and say, we want to do a consolidation. I'm just trying to figure out legally what the town's responsibility is versus what the residents' individual responsibility is. And if in fact it truly requires a state General Assembly change of the Charahoe Act, then that's a whole different ballgame, and I need to know, are we in that ballgame?
Well, Councilman Hurst, I think what is important to remember is the fact that whether the budget and the building proposal is two separate things, even though they might include things in the budget dealing with the elementary schools. What annoys me is when you do something major, and you got to remember, we've had two elementary schools in Hopkinton since early 20th century. So we're talking way before my father, and my father would be almost 100 if he was alive, and he grew up in the Ashway area. The fact of the matter is, it's to have one elementary school in Charahoe is so historic, so unusual, that you're dealing with things that's never happened ever in the history of these three towns, ever, even in colonial times. That's how significant it is. So I think if you're going to do something that major, you should get all the, as the Charahoe people like to use this term, stakeholders, or I think they use that term quite a bit. Everybody should be on board, and that's what leadership is about. And they failed in leadership. Thank you. And I'm not going to comment anymore.
Councilor Moffett, Councilor Geary.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it was kind of one of these, here's my insight on it a little bit. It was a Monday night. We had the presentation, boom, the next day the school committee voted on it. I think we all agreed as a collective group that we agree that nothing gets built on time, nothing gets built within budget. There was way too many moving parts. None of us really got a chance to say, go out to a school and see any of the things that look like they were on the ABC plan that needed repair. And I thought that was just, it was kind of just like, here it is, that. And with the idea of the way the presentation went was, if we don't take this money now, it's going to be even less later, 2 years down the road, I think the term was. So there was a way too many moving parts. I concur with Sharon. I think what they're both trying to say is, was it legal for the school committee to spend the money to go out and do this survey without letting the towns know. I'm good.
Thank you, Council Geary. From what I took from John Anderson, the school committee, or I should say the district's attorney, the other night at the meeting, I'm not sure I saw Scott, Sharon, or anyone else at it. I'm not sure
I
if
was
they
having- I
were
was
you
having
okay, Sharon?
computer problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, he did seem to think that was they had every right. Now, this is a hot topic. This is a hot subject. You know, at the end of the day, the voters have the choice, the decision, all of this stuff. Many may not like the path that this is going down. I will be honest, I like the community schools. I think they add identity to the towns. I mean, Ashway is Ashway School, Hope Valley School, you know, Charlestown, Richmond. I mean, I agree 100% with whatever he was saying as far as these small schools. But I mean, it's up to the voters. I mean, much as people may not like this, I mean, we're elected officials here. We're here because people elected us to be here. I'm not complaining that somebody voted for me. I mean, I just think that, you know, we might just have to do a job. If that's what you want, go out and notify people that this is the vote, this is whatever. I don't think they have a solid plan. Their next vote after the budget vote is a vote to extend their timeline to be able to get any of this done. I mean, they have to start somewhere, and they're going to by the sounds of it. I'm not sure we can stop that, or we should stop that. I mean, I have heard from more people in support of this than people who are against it. I mean, I hold my view that I like the community schools. That's what I like. That's why I chose to stay in Ashway. My children love Ashway School, and that's my 2 cents. So, I mean, that's that. So if no other council members have any other comments or questions on this, I'm going to open it to the public because I'm sure that it's obviously going to be the topic of discussion, and we will be able to answer, interject, or add to the public forum. So, does anyone have any other questions, concerns regarding this? Not hearing any, I'm going to move on to the public forum. The first hand raised is 539-2294. Star 6, unmute yourself, please, and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Mary Carlson, or Mimi Carlson, and I've been in town for 40 plus years, and I'm totally opposed to this. And I think, you know, the lawyers should look into enjoining or an injunction against the town spending any money in the budget to do this. We're paying off a bond for the Campus 2010 and a bond for the special needs building. I know, alternate education building. The last thing we need to do is do another bond. But everywhere you look in education, the smaller schools are the best model for the youngest kids. Imagine these kids, grade, I guess, pre-K through 4th grade, on 45-minute bus rides twice a day. It's just unthinkable. Talk about mind-numbing and, you know, like a bully circus. You know, subjecting these kids, these very, very young, developing minds to that kind of torture is outrageous. I think the school board has really lost their minds. You know, somebody's dangling, you know, a nice, bright, shiny dollar in front of them, and they're like squid going to a fluorescent lure. It's making me nuts because our community schools are thriving, and they're excellent. And I've asked again and again and again for the last 10 or 12 years for Cheraho to provide me evidence that the fifth graders that show up at that middle school are doing as well on their studies there that they did in fourth grade at the community schools, and they have never provided any evidence of that. I think we should just take our fifth and sixth graders back and go to the old junior high, senior high model and keep our youngest kids here and never send them to what Georgia calls a factory in the field. And I think we ought to look around to see about how we do an injunction or literally have the council advocate for turning down this budget so we take the money away. Hello? Are you there?
Are we still, are we on public forum? Are we still in the last line item before public forum?
Steve.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I heard you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a dead line.
Well, I think Steve wasn't sure whether you were finished or not, but
No, I'm done for now, but I'm really upset about this. I think they've lost their mind at the school committee.
Hey, maybe it's Council Geary. Yes, President Moffett must have hit the mute button. He's back on now.
okay.
Thank you. That's exactly what I did. Now, Mimi, thank you for your comments. I mean, we can ask the solicitor, but again, I'm sure others share your opinion, but it doesn't make it the absolute right thing to do. But we will look into it.
I think we ought to recall them all.
Well, again, that's your opinion, Mimi. Thank you.
You'll find out it's more than that. I'm a fighter.
Same here. All right. Up next, 539. Wait, hold on. Sylvia, you have the floor. Sylvia Thompson. Just state your name for the record.
Yeah, hi, this is Sylvia Thompson, Hopkinton. I'm going to go right to the topic that's been ongoing for the last number of minutes. The question, and I've been listening. The question that I would have, that I hope you throw to the solicitors, not for a response right now, but for a response, would be. Can the school committee do the preliminary work, the surveys, hire an architect, etc.? Can the school committee spend money to do that preliminary work? Or, as the Cheraho Act states, it is the approved regional school district building committee that secures competent architectural and engineering services, surveys, and the preparation of plans, etc. So that would be the question that I would like to know, not right this minute, but over time. And I think the council needs to know. And my question, and I would not take the school committee solicitor's word that the process that they're doing is correct. And maybe it is correct, but we need to make sure, in light of what the Cheraho Act states. I don't get that part. So that would be my overriding question for the solicitors, if you choose to have them respond. And ask them, if you're going to do that, ask them to put it in writing. So other than that specific question, I sent to the council some documents, and specifically in reference to the budget, but in reference to the enrollment numbers. And there is a chart that has enrollment expenditure, the actuals, the surplus, and the fund balance. But Cheraho has lost just over 800 in-district students since 2001. And as I put in the letter and in these documents, you have to go back more than 40 years to the 1970s to find a number that is this low. What I have a problem with, one of the problems I have with Chero currently, is that they are not distinguishing between the decreasing in-district students and the increasing out-of-district students in their presentations that were used at your very council meeting recently. And I think that's misleading. And I hope you would, one of the things I hope you will do is request that they rework their enrollment document used in their presentations to reflect this difference in order to fairly represent this information, because the tax money we pay to fund Cheraho is determined by the number of in-district students every year. And as a matter of fact, this year, Cheraho lost another 71 students, but that's not reflected in their enrollment data either that they're using for the presentation. As to the budget, overestimating or overtaxation has been an ongoing problem that we've had with Cheraho since 2006. And there has been cooperation and there have been successes over the years when we have tried to work with them on this very issue of overestimating. Brian Rosso has had more input on specific line items, and he identified those at the omnibus meeting. So I've heard from some of you tonight whether or not you support the proposed budget, but I am curious to find out individually if you're willing to tell us, and collectively if you're willing to tell us if any of you support the budget. But this issue of the Cheraho Act and whether the process that Cheraho is using is appropriate, I would ask that the solicitors also look at the RIDE regulations. Are the RIDE regulations, or in reference to this 80%? Apparently they've promulgated new regulations for this newer and fewer schools. But did these regulations mean that the school committee can do the preliminary work and not the building committee? So is it the building committee? Is it the school committee? And did RIDE allow this to happen? And as Mr. Anderson pointed out last week at a meeting when I spoke, he said this is the way we did the Campus 2010 proposal, or in the special needs or the adaptive living new building that we approved. Maybe that was done wrong, or maybe they're done right. But what was right, and how should we proceed? So those are the questions I have. And other than that, I hope you guys can consider my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Just as a note, Sylvia graduated a year after me in high school. I won't say the years, but she was involved and she's been a longtime community activist. And she goes beyond what the average person does by far. And I thank Sylvia publicly for her efforts. Thank you.
Lisa, I see that your hand is up. Did you have a comment?
Actually, it was from a couple times ago. I'm good.
Okay, all right. Let me just double checking. All
Thank
right.
you.
Up next here, 539-2160. Please hit *6 to unmute yourself and state your name for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Georgia Ewer. I'm a Hopkinton resident my whole life. What I'd like to talk about is probably some of the things that have been spoken about already. I think it's very important if we find out if they're following the Cheraho Act. It is a law, and they should be following the Cheraho Act. And I think they need a building committee before they do what they've been doing. It's too bad that they're following a procedure over at Charahoe, talking about one school, one big school, instead of our 2 schools in Hopkinton, and instead of the 4 schools in the district, the elementary schools. Educational research, like Mimi said, has shown that smaller schools are better educationally. And when you figure that if they put all of the elementary kids over at Charahoe, we're going to be talking about 5,000 people being over there on that campus. And how they figure they're going to save any money that way is beyond me. They're going to need 4-lane highways to get the kids in and out. They're going to need not just septic systems, they're going to need sewer systems. They're going to need water systems. They're putting a small city over there. Common sense tells me it's not the way to go, and what I would hope the council would do is stop them from proceeding anymore, even thinking about that particular type of planning for the future. I think the state of Rhode Island is wrong in promoting this idea of newer and fewer, especially seeing they came up with this before the pandemic. And with pandemics and with terrorism, putting all your eggs in one basket is not the thing to do. We've got to have a different kind of planning and education, and that bigger school over there with all our eggs in one basket would be a definite mistake. Thank you.
I would like to say, Councilman Hurst, Georgia is a school teacher. She was our first recreation director, chairman of our town's charter commission, very active in the community, just like Councilor Thompson, former Councilor Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. Up next, Joe, *6, and then state your name for the record, please.
Good evening, it's Joe Moreau. First thing I want to say is a great job with the budgeting process by Brian, our town council, Lisa, all our department heads, and our town staff. I listened to the last school committee meeting, and in my opinion, some folks are just hell-bent on pushing forward with their plan of the newer and fewer. Sylvia, Georgie, Barbara, Mimi, all had great points. The Charahoe student enrollment expenditure surplus that Sylvia was talking about, I had a copy of it, and she already mentioned about being down more than 800 students, in-district students, in fact, down 71 this year. Georgie asked a question, how much money was being spent or was in the budget for this proposal as far as architectural fees and so forth, and they wouldn't give her an answer. They said it wasn't the proper time. And finally, someone chimed in, and I believe it was somewhere like $1.1 million that they were looking at. But when you look at every year from 2005 to 2021, the enrollment has been down, except for 2020, which showed +2 students. You know, our taxes, as we said, 76% pay for the in-district students. And Charahoe claims that they expect 82 more students in 5 years. And I just don't understand that, especially Barbara asked to reduce the fund balance, and she was flat out told no. When you look at the year-end surplus, year-to-date for 2020, it's $4,386,000 in surplus. You look at the fund balance, it's $9,139,000. It's just incredible with the amount of money that they have on hand, and they want to waste at least $250,000 on this study. I'm glad that our residents and town council are responding to those issues. And I just question, how can we get the message to, Georgie mentioned, how do we get the message to the folks at Charahoe that the residents just don't want this? And unfortunately, the residents that don't pay a lot of attention will just go and look at the budget and vote yes or vote no. But are they going to know all the details as far as fund balance and surplus? I don't think so. But that's all I wanted to say. And thanks again for your great job with the budgeting.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe. I I need to make a small little fix on this agenda here. Lisa, in my excitement to get to the forum, the public forum, I skipped right over boards and commissions. We have two people here to discuss, consider, and possibly vote on. Do I need to make any type of motion to go back to that agenda item?
This is Lisa. I thought you were still on the new business item 2.
Yeah, still in new business, Steve.
Right, but I had made a statement that we were going to the public forum. That's all. That's fine. I mean, I
think a lot of
I
times.
think sorry.
No, I
I
just
think
think
you
with
could go
the,
back to,
go ahead, Lisa.
okay. No, all right. I think you could go right back to the boards and commissions because I was under the impression you were still on a new business item 2 because the discussion has been on that subject matter. So I missed the fact that you moved on to public forum. But that being said, I think you could go back and just go back to the boards and commissions.
okay. So on that note, I'm briefly, so kind of just where you thought we were, because we were talking about Charahoe, and I see that we have a larger attendance than normal, and based on the topic, I made the move to go to public forum. So that's why I thought we were in public forum, and we could address it because it was on the agenda and we could discuss it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I am going to kind of put a freeze on the public forum right this second. We're going to go back to boards and commissions. I apologize for that error. So next up, boards and commissions. Number 1, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to appoint Jason Parent to the Land Trust Board of Trustees. Is there any discussion? If no discussion, do I have a motion?
Mr. President, Council Gary, make a motion, we accept the Jason Prescott to Land Trust Board.
Second.
Marvel, I second.
All in favor?
Gary, aye.
Hurst, aye.
Marvel,
Moffat,
aye.
aye.
Davis, aye.
Okay, motion passes. Jason Parent is appointed to the Land Trust Board of Trustees. Up next, number 2, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to reappoint Ronald Prowitz to the Planning Board.
Councilor Hurst, I move to reappoint Ronald Prowitz to the Planning Board.
Sharon Davis, seconds.
Council
The
Gary,
appointment.
All in favor?
aye.
Hurst, aye.
Gary, aye.
Davis, aye. Davis, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Moffat, aye. Ron Prowitz is reappointed to the Planning Board. All right. Next up, I'm going to continue with a public forum. Hand raised next is Barbara. Could you please state your name for the record? *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Barbara Capalbo. Can you hear me?
We can, Barbara.
Thank you. I have 2 things. One is I wanted to thank you for appointing Mr. Prowitz. He's knowledgeable of commercial and building necessities, and he knows the town as a longtime resident. He has integrity, and he understands the bottom line reality, living with regulation. So I appreciate that that appointment. I also wanted to talk about Charahoe. The one school is not a done deal. That is still going to be discussed over any number of meetings through August. So it is still something that's open to discussion, because I would certainly agree with most of the other people that I've heard speaking that I am against a single school for any number of their reasons, let alone any number that we haven't even thought of yet. I did suggest that I do understand their need for newer and fewer. They need newer schools because all 4 of our elementary schools are extraordinarily old and will take millions and millions to upgrade consistently over the next 20 or 30 years. So I am open to the idea of new schools, but I had proposed that they had 2 schools, one on the Charleston Richmond line and one on the Hopkinton Richmond line. So we can keep the community feeling and keep all of that, as well as having a newer school, but with a lot smaller amount of children. It is foolish to put all your eggs in one basket, but Georgia Ure was absolutely correct about the kind of infrastructure you would need on that. So I want people to understand that it's not a done deal, but indeed there are going to be a lot of discussions that you should be part of. I think you can also, I usually approve the school budget. I usually will side with them. This year, I probably will not, because I really felt they needed to cut the fund balance down to 2%. I think that's crucial, especially since the Biden plan just gave $1.5 billion to schools around the country. And they have a new head of education, which is very cognizant and supportive of public schools. So I don't think they'll have the problems they had over the last 4 years. So I think that they're going to be getting the money they need. And I definitely do not believe that they need to keep extra money in their budget. It is ours. It belongs to the people. It does not belong to the school, where the fund balance is concerned. And you have to realize the fund balance does not deal at all with students or programs or teachers or benefits or facilities. It is money that sits there in case. And as far as I'm concerned, that money can sit in our pockets in case instead of the schools. I was very disappointed at something as simple as that they could not accomplish. I do think that we need to look at the schools. I'm sure people will. The capital budget that incorporates the school architectural process will not only be spent on that, it's going to be spent on capital projects as well. So I don't have as much of a problem with that, because it doesn't all mean it will go to the single school. If anything, it can go to the surveys, and that's fine. But we do have things to discuss, and I do hope people will stay involved. And I do think, since we have always run our budgets in the black, that Charahoe needs to reduce a little further. And I would like the budget not pass this year so that they can reduce it by another couple of $100,000, which I think would help all of our budgets as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. One more hand up. Sylvia, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for picking me up again. I just wanted to briefly mention that in 1986, when the voters approved the K through 12 regionalization, the bargain that was made at that time was, are you going to protect our elementary schools? Because the elementary schools were governed by the local in-town school committees back then, and we had the high school and the junior senior high at Charahoe. So the bargain was that within, and the bargain was made, and obviously it passed, but the bargain was that within the Charahoe Act, there's language in there that protects the elementary schools and keeps them in the individual towns. And that's why it would require a change to the Charahoe Act in order to have a single elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thanks, Sylvia.
Joe, go ahead, Joe.
Hi, this is Joe Moreau. I don't know Jason, so I can't comment on his reappointment, but I've known Ron for almost 3 years now. I appreciate his straightforward approach on topics. Sometimes I may not agree with him and he may not agree with me, but we always have a nice conversation about it. Ron always does the research on items before the planning board. He has been the chair of several of the planning board meetings when he takes over for Al. I believe Ron has the best interest of our town in his decision making, and that's very important. I'd like to thank Ron and Jason for their volunteer and their time on their boards, and thank you for the council for their support of both of those reappointments. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
All right, 5392160, *6 to unmute yourself, please. And just state your name for the record.
This is Georgia Ewer. I wanted to mention something about Briggs Park that I happen to know. Briggs Park was given to the town by the Briggs family, and it was in memory of Mr. Briggs' daughter, who was the highest ranking female in the Second World War. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind, you know, and I'm sure the Briggs family would be very happy to know that there's extra help to keep that park up. But the park could be very nice. It's a very nice location, wonderful piece of property, and I look forward for it to be improved. And I hope we remember this woman who was in the Briggs family, who was the most, I believe was the highest ranking female in the Second World War. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Hurst, I just point out, and usually councilors don't speak, but that's Lieutenant Colonel Ruth M. Briggs, Women's Army Corps in the United States Army. And she was, I believe, secretary to Walter Beadle Smith, who was chief of staff at Eisenhower's European headquarters in World War II. Thank you. I believe she was secretary and maybe driver to him. Thank you.
Thank you for that tidbit, Scott. All right, not seeing any hands up in a public forum here. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Councilman Hurst, I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Council Moffett, Council Gary, second, Councilor Hurst's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moffat, aye.
Aye.
Marvel, aye.
Gary, aye.
Davis, aye.
All right, motion passes. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Have a
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.